Welcome to the SFP series hosted by Son. Today we'll be talking about how to approach white space questions. This session will be delivered by myself and Dr. Saloni Singh. So Dr. Singh, she is a current AFP in education at East of England, and I'm an F1 in Trent who'll be doing AFP research next year. This session has been hosted by MDU, which is the Medical Defense Union. It's an organization that provides legal advice to healthcare students and professionals. I'd strongly encourage you to join it if you haven't already. I think for medical students, the membership's free, and for junior doctors, it's about 10 a year. Okay, so let's get started. Today's session will focus on white space questions, the role of these questions in your SFP application, strategies for writing them, and then Dr. Singh will also provide some examples of her own questions and how she approached them. So what are white space questions? Essentially, they're a mini personal statement. It's your chance to showcase your achievements, why you think you're a good candidate for this position. The aim of the questions is to secure an interview. So each year this changes and it differs with each deanery, but you get a set of points from your application and then you get some points from your interview, and then they'll combine them and see how you scored and appropriately offer you a position. Approximately, there are about 225 words, but this can vary and the number of questions vary from each region. Last year, these were not required by all regions, but I do believe this has changed for this year, and I'll go over that in a second. So finding the information, you go on the UK Foundation Programme website, previously known as Academic Foundation, it's now known as Specialised Foundation Programme. There are two sets of documents that are important for you. So the first set is this one, which gives you the information for 2022 interviews. It'll basically give you a list of all the deaneries, how many programs are available, the type of programs they offer. And I believe this year, so far, all the interviews are being held online. This can change if COVID sort of improves, but at the moment, they're all online, starting from about beginning November, ranging till end December, beginning Jan. The thing is that the web links for each of these units of application is provided, and those will be really useful when you're writing your questions as well as when you're preparing for your interviews. So for example, last year, some people took an initiative and researched not only what the program they like, but potential supervisors and emailed them. And that's something they spoke about in the interview, which showed that they were pretty proactive and really interested in the program. And this is the second document that's important for you, which is basically the white space questions. Last year, each deanery had their own unique set of questions and different number of questions. But this year, it seems like there are 5-6 questions that are mandatory for everyone. So the first one that's mandatory is your career goals, your specific reasons for applying, how this program will help you. This is where it's great to look at your deanery's website, what they can offer you, make it as personalized as you can towards them. So is there a particular sort of research center that you're interested in? Maybe you've already worked with them before. Maybe it's a particular specialty that they would offer, for example, specialties like neurosurgery or transplants or hematology. Bigger centers are not available everywhere in the country, so maybe they're specific to you and that would help you. Achievements and experience, that's the second set that's mandatory for all. So essentially, they want you to describe one clinical and one non-clinical achievement and how this would help you in this program. While we're going to discuss different strategies later, one tip for this is just sort of to have 2 sheets of paper and one of them write your non-clinical achievements, one of them write clinical, and then see, lay down how many sort of skills you can pull out from each and which one would give you the best chances of, showcasing your best self in that question. Program interests. So there are 3 programs you can apply to: research, education and teaching, and leadership and management. You can only apply to a maximum of 2 foundation schools. The number of programs you apply to within them is up to you. If they do offer all 3 programs, you can rank all 3. If you're only interested in certain research, certain education, you can just choose those. I would say that only apply for the programs you are interested in, because you will be spending a substantial amount of time, most likely in F2, and you want to spend it in an area that interests you, and that's going to help you develop your career in the future. The next set of questions are specific to which program you're applying to, and we'll go through different strategies on how to approach these. And then these are the other two questions that are mandatory. So one's about team working and one's just general. About team working, so I would say give different examples in each of these questions. So for example, earlier, if you're giving an example in your non-clinical achievement and you sort of touched on teamwork. So when you come to this question, give another example. This way you can showcase different areas of different experiences you've had and how each of them have contributed. It also shows the people that you've multitasked and you've been able to organize your time well and reach this point. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Singh now, and if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat and we'll keep answering them.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. So I've just put together some of the tips that I found useful when I was writing my white space. I think
you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Still can't hear you.
Well, everybody else can. Sorry.
Oh, okay, they can hear you, I guess. So go on.
All right. So some of the tips that I found useful when I was applying for AFP. So the first thing to do is find out which programs you want to apply and what questions they want you to answer. So it's very important that you read the questions early. I think they're already on the website, and make sure you look at the deanery that you want to apply to and look at their questions, because the questions that Devika has mentioned, I think they're more generic and they might vary with different deaneries. So the other thing is you try to design your answers based on the rotations that you want. And I'll talk more about it as we go through the rest of the slides. And there's something called an academic compendium that I found useful. So it goes through, briefly goes through the list of things that they would expect you to do as an SFP. So if you pick out some buzzwords, which are listed here in the table, and try to incorporate those into your questions. Also read the person specification. So they'll tell you exactly what they'd like you to do if you were going to do the SFP post. So go through that and try to align your goals with what they're offering you as an SFP. I would say that start writing as soon as possible, at least 2 weeks in advance, because you will read it and reread it and change it a lot before you're happy to submit your final version. You'll get others to read it as well, and they might have some suggestions. So it's good if you write something and then see how you find it, and you have a chance to change it a couple of times before you submit it. So I'm not able to move to the next slide. Okay. The other thing is to make a mind map of all the skills and the roles that you've had in the last 5 to 6 years of medical school. So you know what you can put down in different answers. So for example, if a question is going to ask about your leadership role, if you have a list of things in mind that you can already talk about, so it's good if you put them all together, and then when you're doing your answers, you can pick and choose what skills you would like to list. A really useful, there are a couple of frameworks that you can use to design how you want to answer your questions. One of them is known as the STAR format. Some of you might have heard of it already. So this is particularly useful in questions that ask you to give an example about a skill, such as a leadership skill or team working skill. So you choose your situation and state exactly what your role was and what skills you have used in order to fulfill this role. Also talk about how you can apply these skills that you have used and how you can use them and apply it into your as an SFP. So that would be your result, and then a bit of reflection about why you enjoyed this role and how you see yourself in this role in the future as an SFP. So everything that you do, try to incorporate it into why you should be an SFP, why your skills are really important. You're essentially selling yourself for the post. Another format is the camp format. So this is useful when you're describing why you've chosen an AFP as an SFP program. So to align with your goals. So what are your clinical goals? What do you see yourself doing in the future in terms of once you become a consultant, or do you want to do it? Are you more interested in research? Are you more interested in a certain type of surgery? And why this specific role, this specific job is important for you. So try to align that. So give a clinical reason, an academic one if you can, a management reason. So if you're doing a leadership AFP, then talk about why this one would be important for you. And also, you can also talk about your personal reasons. So I'll go through one of the examples and state why I've chosen this specific deanery, why that would be important. So if we go to the next slide. So one of the very common questions is why this SFP? So you have three options. You have your leadership, teaching, or research ones. So make sure you research what the post is before you state this answer, because it might vary with which deanery you're applying to. So for example, for me, my top choice in my deanery was a rotation with TNO. And if I wanted to become a TNO surgeon, that perfectly aligns with my goals, and that would be the post for me. So you can mention that that's your personal reason for it and your academic reason as well. And let's say your deanery has a specialist center, like a cardiothoracic center. So you can talk about that as well and state that that's your personal and academic reason for choosing this specific AFP. Talk about the skills that you will gain and how you'll be able to apply this long-term into your career. So if it's a teaching one, then the skills that you will gain in education, or the research skills that you'll gain, and try to specify what kind of skills you would gain in research itself, in teaching itself. Then the last thing is, why do you need this SFP? Why can't you just do a normal foundation program? How does that make a difference to your career goals, getting an AFP versus a normal foundation program? So for me, I chose an education one. So the reason was that I want to go on, do a PG cert, and then do a diploma in medical education. And I want to eventually become an academic or consultant. So maybe a surgeon, and on the side also be a professor or teach. So that aligns with my goals. So the most important thing to do is make sure when you state that, okay, I'm a good teacher, you also back it up with your past experience. You can't blatantly just state something, because they don't know you, and the answers are a way that they get to know you. So you need to talk about your experiences, what you're good at. So in a way, you're boasting about yourself, and that's okay. This is exactly what the questions are asking you. So if you say I'm a good teacher, talk about what skills you use as a teacher that make you really good. So you're able to explain concepts in really simple terms. You're very patient. You have a certain approach that people really like. And then you can talk about the positive feedback that you've received from students. The other thing is to state is good time management skills. It's one of those buzzwords, good time management skills, but then back it up that I had a leadership role in medical school, and at the same time I was also able to achieve a merit or something alongside, so that you were able to manage your time and split your work into different roles. Similarly, it goes for, I've gained research skills. Specify what research skills you have. So you're able to analyze data really well. You have knowledge of patient randomization. You have knowledge of a certain systematic review, and then you're able to do those things. So specify exactly what you have. So the other question is, describe your teaching achievement or experience. So this is more personally for me, because I applied for an education one. I found it useful to use the STAR format and then say what exactly my role was as a teacher. What exactly did I do? So I taught for 3 months, 4 months, every week. and the skills that I used, like I've stated earlier. What did I achieve from it? So I learned that I've enjoyed teaching, which is why I'm applying for an educational SFP, because I want to go down that path and be a teacher at the same time as a clinician. And then also talk about any challenges that you've had and what skills did you use to overcome that. So you could say that you had good organizational skills, which helped manage your time, because it is quite demanding to do your everyday placements and then go on and teach someone for an hour or two. You have to prepare for the sessions during the week. So you can talk about all of that. So same goes for describe. So one of the questions that they can ask you is describe a research proposal. So if you're applying for a research program, they might ask you if you already have any ideas for what you want to achieve as an SFP. So again, you can use the post handbook, see what skills they are looking for, and you can mention those. You can mention why you want to do a certain research proposal and how it aligns with your career goals, like I said before. And also describe how you'll be able to do a certain research program. So let's say you want to do a systematic review, but you don't want to do it alone. You'd like to do it with 4 other people. So you need to state that you would do team meetings and specify people, their roles, and use certain skills to make sure that you're able to complete your systematic review on time. So you need to go into details about what you would like to do. The challenge is that you only have 225 words, which is why if you start writing early, possibly the first time you write, you might have 500 words. So you can cut it down and narrow it down if you have enough time before the application deadline. So this is one of the questions that I have had for East of England Education AFP. So there are 2 parts to this question. One is, why am I applying to an AFP? The other one is, why an educational AFP? Why not a leadership one or a research one? So I've just highlighted some of the main points that I've used here. So I said that I'll be able to develop competencies of an academic doctor, which means I'll be able to act as a clinician, a teacher, scholar, and a leader. And then I've matched it with my previous experience, past experience of teaching in medical school and the skills that I've gained in teaching. I've also backed it up with an example here. So, so the other thing is, I've talked about my future goals. So I want to do academic clinical fellowship after I finish my PG cert in education as an AFP. In East of England, there's a cardiothoracic center. So I said that I'm interested in cardiothoracic surgery, and by applying to East of England, I'm able to match that goal. So I've also said exactly why this AFP, not in some other deanery, but why this deanery. So the bits in green matches with the deanery. So that would be my personal reason for it. Then I've talked about my long-term goals, what I want to achieve as a clinician in the future, let's say 10 years down the line, and then how I've already started. So here I've backed it up with an example about my own skills and experiences. I've talked about why I want a PG cert, how it will turn me into a successful medical educator. And I think this bit here about teaching strategies and curriculum design, this is something I got from the post handbook. So they've mentioned about the skills that we'll be using as an AFP. So those would be some of the buzzwords that you can get by reading the person specification. The next example is about what steps would you take to optimize the benefits of an AFP post from the start of your training. So that's one part of the question. The second part is, what challenges do you foresee? So they're trying to make sure that you understand that you are splitting your time between being a clinician and also being an academic, and you realize that there might be challenges to it, that you're up to it after you get this post. They want to make sure that you have the skills for it. So here, I've talked about the fact that I'll start preparing early. So like Devika mentioned earlier, some people contacted some supervisors already. So you can talk about that here as well, if you'd like, that you've already contacted someone, you already have a project in mind, which massively changes your timeline. You'll be able to start everything early and finish everything on time. So again, buzzwords would be designing a teaching program and discussing things with the team, involving others. Then I said, to answer the second part of the question, I've stated that some of the challenges would be splitting my time. And then I've backed it up to say that I have good time management skills. And I'm able to say that because I've had this different roles as a medical student, aside from being a medical student. And then what did I gain from those roles? So organizational skills, task prioritization, forward planning, and then being able to understand that I do have limitations and that I'm able to still plan my day accordingly. So the last part here is about concerns about being an AFP. So splitting my time, not being, it might be difficult to tackle both educational and clinical goals. But then I've also stated how I'll be able to tackle it. So to say that, oh, I'm committed to learning and professional development. So it will ensure that I stay on the path to complete my goals. I hope that makes sense. Just let me know if you guys have any questions about it. So important things to remember is you don't write anything that you cannot already back up. So let's say if I said I was a part of a team in medical school, let's say a society, then make sure that you're able to back it up if they ask you for a certificate or a letter that states that you have been part of it. If you say you've started a teaching program, make sure that someone is able to provide you a letter that says that you have started it and your role was X, Y, and Z. Avoid any generic statements. So to say that I'm a good teacher, you wouldn't leave it at that. You need to make sure that you back it up with something. And yeah, so avoid listing achievements. Make sure you back them up with your skills and how this is going to help you in the future as an SFP. So in summary, read the question really carefully. If it says give an example, make sure you only give one example. You only have 225 words. So focus on just one thing. On the other hand, if they say give a clinical and a non-clinical example, make sure you give both and not leave it just to a clinical example. So start writing now if you can, and ask others to read it. Ask if you know any AFPs, ask them to read it because they know what kind of answers the deanery is looking for. Ask a friend to read it who might not be applying because they'll have a different perspective to the whole thing. Check your grammar. That is one of the easiest things to make a mistake. So make sure everything looks correct, the sentences are right. And research the job really well. So for today, make sure you go through the person specification and the academic compendium if you can. Sorry if that was really fast. Just let me know if you have any questions about anything.
So we will be sending out the presentation to everyone who attended. So if there's anything you want to go back to, you can always do that. There will be a recording of this posted online. Our next session will be sometime in the beginning of October about preparing for an SFB interview. And then we have a specific session just for critical appraisal of a paper. I have sent a link on the chat for a feedback form. So if you could just tell us what went well and what we can do to make these sessions better for you in the future. Thank you very much for attending, and we both are here if you have any questions.